Hello, and welcome back to I Create For You. My name is Lori, and we're finishing up the section in this Ghosts Among Us book that are letters that were written to different authors, and this author got permission to put them in this book, and they're letters about ghost encounters. This one is going to be called Nightmare House, from Lisa Duckworth. I still have nightmares about a rental house I lived in over 30 years ago. When we moved into the Little Rock, Arkansas house in 1972, it felt a little strange, but we put it down to a change in scenery. My mother was disabled and newly divorced, so things were a bit strange. Then one Friday night, my sister Laura, myself, and my mother were in the front bathroom. Mom was brushing her teeth, and Laura was sitting cross-legged on the toilet, and I was perched on the side of the tub. We were discussing our dates with Mom, telling her about what was going on in our lives. It was around 10:30 p.m. We heard something in the dining room. You could see across the hall into the dining room from the bathroom. My mom looked toward the noise and got a funny expression on her face, so we looked too. We saw a woman who bore a striking resemblance to my older sister Marion, now deceased. She was a tall blonde, a little pale, and was wearing a long white nightgown, and was barefooted. She looked like she was floating about a foot off the floor. My mom asked what she wanted, and she turned her head and looked at us, and then went through the French doors into the living room. We just sat there numb. As months went by, several others saw ghosts in our home. There were two that seemed to live there. One was the blonde woman who appeared to be in her mid-20s and stood approximately 5'9", 5'10". She stayed in the front of the house in the dining room and living room area. There was also an older man. He had dark hair, was bearded, and appeared angry. Just his upper torso would appear. There was a back room that felt so creepy that all of us avoided it, friends and family alike. We later found out that the house had a reputation for people moving out in the middle of the night. We lasted about 7 or 8 months. To this day, the house is still the only rental house on the block. I know it sounds crazy, but many people saw apparitions there. It was not a group hysteria thing, as we had guests that came to visit with no idea of what was going on, leave literally screaming in the night. We never said a lot about it to our neighbors. They would have thought we were all crazy. The house is like a bad dream. My husband and I drove by the house the other day. It still looks the same. It was built up on a small hill and is all dark red brick with a big front porch. The back butts up to an alley. It looks perfectly ordinary, but inside the place you can feel how really creepy it is. This is an author's note. As Lisa and I corresponded about the nightmare house from her past, we both grew more curious. She proved to be a diligent researcher, digging up information on the history of the home. She found that the house was built in 1925, and she acquired a long list of the home's occupants. Lisa noted that the first owners of the home were a young couple, the bride just 26. Interestingly, the woman died in November 1972, just months after Lisa's family moved into the rental. A common theory among paranormal investigators is that ghosts can appear in the shape of their former selves at any age. If this is the case, then perhaps the ghost was drawn back to her first home and appeared as she did when she lived there in the 1920s. It is also possible that the ghosts belonged to people who lived in a different house built at that location long before 1925. Who was the angry man? Why was he so angry? Lisa Duckworth and I are still curious, and she continues her research into the mysteries of the Little Rock house. Another interesting story. My thoughts on this one, that at least, even though the guy seemed angry, he didn't act upon his anger, which is a good thing. The girl, they seem to have figured out who she could possibly be and why she was possibly there. The man being angry but not acting upon it wouldn't bother me, but the fact that they can't really find any info as to why that ghost is still there is a bit concerning. It's interesting how some apparitions you can get a feel for, and others they just give you the creepy vibes. And usually when things like that happen, your gut instincts are the ones you should listen to, I think. So I'm going to try to draw both of them. And I'll just split this down the middle. I'll do the young girl first, best that I can, as always. I'm not really going to give her a face. That way you guys don't have to see how bad I do it. So I'm just going to give her hair here. She had long blonde hair. We're going with the long blonde hair look there. Okay, we're gonna get her neck here. And so she was wearing a long white dress. Isn't that weird how most ghosts, when they are seen, the most common dresses that they wear are long white ones? It makes you wonder if they were actually the dresses that they were buried in. But it just seems like there are so many that are in this color dress. I've heard of some that were like in a red dress, but most of the time apparitions are actually just misty visions of someone, so they're not really clear enough to give you an idea of what they have on, like what they would have been wearing. It's just like a foggy look, and so it may appear white, but is that actually the color of what the dress is that person was wearing? Okay. I'm going to draw some. I'm just going to make her dress a little tattered. Since it's been so many years, I'm just going to tatter the dress a little bit here. Hopefully you guys are even seeing what I'm doing. Jesus, I'm so bad at that. Oh. I think I finally got my camera to stop moving so much, but we shall see. We kind of really rigged it up funny too. I mean, if you'd see it, you would be like, oh my goodness, that's just ridiculous. But yeah, that's what happens. And she was supposedly floating, and I'm just going to do her legs here. I'm not sure what that was there. Calf muscle or whatever. But she seemed to be floating above the floor. So I'm just going to make like a doorway here. I know they were looking through their door and seeing her in the hallway. So, you know what? Maybe I'll take a stab at her. Yes, one wild hairdo. Okay, now we'll do the very grumpy old man here. We'll do a. I think, only his torso was shown, but I'm just going to do his face, basically. Just to show how angry this young man or old man. I didn't even say really, but if he's got a beard, he's not that young, I don't think. That's just my opinion. I mean, that's wrong to say that because you have a beard, you're automatically old, but I'm trying to draw like the around the face area. Let me see if I can get these a little bit better here. See, that's a problem when you draw a little darker. It's harder to erase what you've drawn. So I'm just gonna work on his hair. Don't laugh. I know this is a process. It'll get better once it, I'm fully done with it. It'll look a little bit better, I hope. But anyway. Oh my. How's everybody's Monday doing so far? Mondays are Mondays. They are what you make it, I guess, or as they say. Life is what you make it, but sometimes you don't want to make it as tough as it is, so I don't know where that theory comes in. Sometimes there's just like so many problems, so many obstacles, so much to deal with, and it can be hard when you don't understand. And those who have the faith start to question their faith because they don't understand how they could be dealing with so much, me being one of those. I've had my share of trials, and I just, sometimes I just like, why? You always are questioning why, but sometimes you get lucky too, and you're I made a alfalfa there, and things work out. Once you have that, get onto the positive vibe deal. I'm into manifesting lately. I mean, like when you get to a certain point, you'll latch on to some other things to see if anything else can help you in your situation. So yeah, I'm trying to manifest positivity, and some days it works, some days it doesn't. It's just a matter of, I guess, what mind frame I'm in, whether or not it works for me. If I'm really working on the manifesting happiness or getting an answer that I need for something. And like I said, there are plenty of people who deal with the same things day in and day out, and there's always, I've come to the conclusion, my opinion only, that there's always somebody worse off than you are. And so when you hit a certain moment, don't think you were alone in that situation. There was always someone in the same struggle that you have been in one way or another. Might not be the exact struggle, but it's darn close. Don't mind my drawing here. I'm trying my darndest to get this face drawing stuff down pat, so it might not look as good as it should, but I'm going to try to make him angry. Yeah, so I've come to the conclusion that I have to take it day by day and hope that things do get better. That's all you got to do, is just hope hope for the best, because you may have already been through the worst. And if you have, then you're strong enough to wait out the storm and get to that point where you're on the other side of things. And we're all dealing with something, and we're all hoping that things get better. And for the people that already have come through the storm or are out on the other side, good for you. I'm happy that things have finally gone your way and you're finally getting the answers you deserve or need or wanted, and you came out on the other side with a little bit of more strength than you thought you had, more resilience than you thought you had. And if life decides they're going to test you anymore, you've already been through enough to weather that storm also. And always know that there's always friends should always be friends you can talk to. Even if they're not your physical friends, even if they're not your family. Sometimes family's not even there. Take it from me, I know. I've gotten in situations where I know that I don't really have a lot of family, so the family I do have is kind of slim pickings. It's I have a son and daughter, and my son doesn't live close. My daughter does, but has disassociated me from her life. So I have slim pickings, but I have found a community online of people who really, really are some true friends. I've never met them in the only way I've met them is through chat. They know who they are. I have them as some of them as followers of my channel, and yes, I consider them more family than my real family, because sometimes your real family drifts and branches off and does their own thing, and through no fault of your own, you're left to try to figure out what you did to get that way, that they are that way toward you. But you know what? You can't spend your life questioning someone else's behaviors. So, and you can only hope that one day they'll realize, and it might be when you're gone, but they'll realize one day what they did and how it affected you, and wish you were still there, but that by then it's too late. But don't beat yourself up about it. It's really hard to not beat yourself up, I know, because I do it every day. I should practice what I preach, and I often don't. I like to try to stay positive for my friends, and while in the same sense I'm drowning in being miserable and confused and hurt. But I don't want to project so much of my problems and my unhappiness on others. All I can do is say that I'm learning from it and dealing with it in my own way. It's tough. personally, I don't, I tend to break down at least once a day, but I know there's, when you're like kind of stuck in a situation that you know you can't do anything about, and it's frustrating, but you know what, you got to not dwell so much. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm sorry if this is, it seems like such a Debbie Downer video, but it's not how I meant it to be. So I apologize if it comes across that way. So this is Mr. Grumpy Pants. I mean, he doesn't look too angry. I should have put his eyebrows down here more. Make him really look angry, but he's angry. He's angry nonetheless. He's not happy with where he's at. Nobody knows why. And she's just floating about the house. Whether it was because she lived there before, or it was the last place she lived, or I didn't quite catch what her situation was. I think they also were like, they knew she was part of that house, but they weren't sure in what era and what definite connection. I mean, they had some facts to it there, but who knows the circumstances. I think there are just so many things that can happen in a lifetime that a house holds inside the walls, that it's not surprising that those older houses have episodes of apparitions or things moving or a poltergeist activity or whatever. It doesn't surprise me, although some people have different opinions about those things, that it's not who you think they are. If it's not something seen but something doing things, it's more evil than it is good. But in this situation, it's a little confusing, and at the same time, they did get some answers. But like I said, there's so much going over a period of the time that house, from the time that house is built to the present day. So much history has gone through that house, so many families, so many lifestyles, so many personalities. So much has happened that it definitely isn't surprising that things from the beyond come back and check in from time to time. Just good thing that these aren't evil. That kind of reminds me of the Amityville Horror, where it just got into that guy's head. And I don't know if it was a case of him already being mentally disturbed, but you know, things trigger other things, and if evil can get in there and stir it up the pot, I guess that's when the crap hits the fan, sort of like The Shining. He got like almost cabin fever, but then again, the entities in that place sort of played a role in his insanity. Okay, enough of this dramatic talk. I hope you liked what you saw. Hopefully we can get to the next section on Friday, which will be haunted museums. That will be the next section of the book. So that's going to be interesting. I can't wait to I'm my opinion, I've not read any of it. So my idea of the haunted museums are going to be the objects that have been placed in that museum, not necessarily the building itself, but something has attached themselves to the objects that are on display. That's just my opinion of what we're probably going to get into. I might be surprised, you might be surprised, and it might be something totally different. But anyway, it will happen on Friday. It will be the first story in the Haunted Museum series. Thank you so much for stopping by and trudging through this with me. Please give me a thumbs up if you did like what you heard and saw. And sorry for the Debbie Downer incident, but it wasn't meant to be, actually. I'm doing okay. I'm fine. I'm dealing with things day by day, and that's all I can do, and I've resolved myself to that, and I'm trying to bring more positivity. Hopefully all of you have positivity and take a little bit of positivity from this video. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay creative, stay creepy. I stay creepy. I always have creepiness. That's why I like these ghost stories. And stay tuned for the next video. And I hope to see you then. And thank you so much for everyone who's already subscribed. It's very much appreciated. Bye-bye for now.